to the We Grow Together podcast, where we believe that our collective growth is the key to unlocking our individual potential. I'm your host, Laura DiFrancesco, entrepreneur, corporate attorney, investor, and founder of Dean Street Law, Flourish Co-working Space, Ethereal Farms, Laura DiFrancesco, LLC, and a few more. In each episode, I'll be sharing solo insights and engaging in thought-provoking conversations with community leaders, entrepreneurs, and innovators. Together, we'll delve into inspiring stories, best practices, and tactical tips, all rooted in our philosophy that we grow together. Our mission is to support, educate, and celebrate billions of women and entrepreneurs in the pursuit of their dreams, embracing their most authentic self, and living a well-lived life. Join me as we explore entrepreneurship, lifestyle design, wellness, and a lifetime of learning. Whether you're an aspiring entrepreneur, a seasoned business owner, or someone looking to design a life you love, this podcast is for you. Tune in to the We Grow Together podcast, because by sharing our stories and learning from one another, we can achieve more than we ever thought possible. Welcome back to the We Grow Together podcast. I am so excited to celebrate our new season with my dear friend, Shannon Missimer. She is the co-founder with her husband, Matt, of the Motion of Gratitude. And I'm so excited to share her story as someone who lives unapologetically herself, someone who not only chases her dreams and ambitions, brings them to life, but also lives life in a way that's so authentically herself and constantly pivots and follows the dreams that are on her heart. I think that's really important to do in life, because it's the difference of a life well lived and a life that feels fulfilling versus a life that you feel you have to live in accordance with convention. So I'm really excited to dive into so many different aspects of your life and the way that you do things. But first, I would love for you to share a little bit about the Motion of Gratitude and what brought that about in your life to take this dream that's been an idea, something that you felt close to, and bring it into reality, and share a little bit more about what it is.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here. And yes, to give you all a little bit of background on the Motion of Gratitude. So it really started out of personal need. It's crazy. I think it's been almost 6 years. So 6 years ago, I just got to a point in my life where I realized I was going through the motions. Like you're talking about, I was kind of waking up and doing things because people told me to do them, because I felt like I was supposed to do them, because the rest of the world was doing them. You know, it kind of felt like that's where I was. And I realized it was time to make a choice, to make a change. It was time to do things differently. And that's the Motion of Gratitude got started because what I realized was it was time for me to actually acknowledge the good things that were happening in my life, because I had kind of gone numb to the beauty. You know, I was kind of in that phase of having little kids. I had 2 little kids at the time, and, you know, motherhood for me brought me into a new chapter in my life. And it was the first time I really realized the importance of slowing down and having to be intentional with seeing the good things and actually being present in my life and learning what that means. So the Motion of Gratitude, what we do is we help people feel the impact of intentional gratitude and learning to be present in their lives. And for me, it really started with intentional practices and showing up in a different way. And after I kind of looked back, after starting my own practice and looking back about 2 months, I realized I was a different person. I was looking at the world differently. I was showing up differently. So of course I had to dive into the science of all the things that were happening. And it was just mind blowing to me. And I think I realized over those years that we overlook and undervalue what an intentional practice of gratitude and being present can really do in our life. And so we spent the last 6 years developing how we can support people on that journey. And now we're really exploring supporting more than just individuals, but supporting teachers who are carrying this incredible load of supporting kids, and as well as businesses where burnout is at extreme rates, and really creating more gratitude initiatives in which businesses and communities can incorporate it into their spaces to be able to have more of a structure around an intentional gratitude and a practice of being present that they can provide to their employees or to their community.
You were truly a catalyst for my intentional gratitude process. I've always been a very grateful person. I've always had gratitude on my heart, but you really helped me shape that into something much more intentional. And so something that I do now in my life, which I haven't shared with you, is that as I'm journaling, I like to have an agenda, and I put hearts. And instead of it, I do have a part of my agenda every day. It's a journal, like a daily agenda journal. And on part of it is the things that I have to do. And then I have hearts for all the things that make me happy that I did throughout the day. And so that may be I woke up and I had breakfast with James. It might be that I was able to have a podcast with you. And so you brought so much intentionality to my life, and it's worked wonders for me. It helps to really make that shift. We all want to be the best version of ourselves that we can, but we go through ups and downs in our lives. And I feel like gratitude has been the biggest catalyst to make that switch from a season of hardship to a season of growth and possibility.
Yes, that's so cool to hear that. And because that's how it was for me. Like, I was somebody who I always said I was grateful, right? Like, we learned that growing up. Like, the first thing you do, say thank you, and it becomes a conditioned response. So we know we're supposed to do it, but for me, I personally lost the feeling behind it. And it was hard for me to connect back to that feeling. And that's where I was. At that point, 6 years ago, that was a really dark time for me. And it was the first time I couldn't dig out, like I was always playing sports before I had kids, or if I needed a minute, I would go to the gym, right? I had that freedom and flexibility. When I became a mom, that shifted for me. And it was something that I knew I didn't want to miss the season of life. I knew how important it was, and I knew I wanted to be present for it. So I knew I had to look at life different. And I think sometimes when it's funny actually having a business around gratitude, because when you have conversations with people around gratitude, it's such an interesting conversation, right? Because a lot of the responses are like, well, I'm grateful already. And it's like, wonderful, but for me, there's a depth of gratitude.
Absolutely.
That we can tap into that is so much deeper than just saying the word. And I think that's my hope in the business and in life, and even just these are the conversations that I love when somebody even hears that, talking about the gratitude practice and implementing something different. Like, that's what I love. It's like just that reminder to have that intentional practice around it that makes a huge difference.
And finding ways to bring it into your life that are realistic and will actually work. And I think that's part of what you really helped me with. And you have your bracelet, which is your gratitude reminder, right?
Yes, exactly. Because that's what I realized is, because you talked at the beginning about like just kind of going through life and finding that purpose. And what I realized that really made the shift for me to be able to be so intentional with that practice was I needed to anchor into something deeper in my life. Like, it was no longer the external things that were going to light me up and get me out of bed. Like, I had to anchor into something internally that was more meaningful than being tired, and so my bracelet becomes that anchor for me. And it's that reminder to say, like, yes, there's so many beautiful things, and there's so many, even in the hardest of times, I have found that there's at least one thing I can connect to that's still going right. It's those things are still there. We just have to put our attention back on them.
And they're almost like lifeboats.
Exactly. And it does. It just pulls your mind out of this downward spiral of, oh, this is going wrong and this is going wrong. And, there's so much science that I love, because I love to dig into all the science of it, and where the things that we focus on, they expand, right? And we see more of them, and so if we're focusing on the negative, we're going to see more of it, and we're going to see less opportunity in our life. So if we're intentionally saying, nope, I know all this is happening, but I'm going to make the choice to still find the good, and you keep digging, your brain will actually work with you. Say, okay, all right, what are we going to find? Like, let's keep going. And I think that's so powerful.
Absolutely. You're rewiring your neurological pathways to make it easier to return to that place.
Yes.
So cool. And so you have a lot of different ways to access working with you guys. There is the app, the journal, and you go to communities, schools, businesses to share, have leadership programs and programs to bring gratitude to employees as well. Can you share a little bit more about those offerings? I've just touched the surface of those.
Well, in the same way, so with your business where you've wanted to make it simpler and create kind of a how-to for people that is affordable and is approachable, like that's what we wanted to do. Because what's been so funny to me is, so my husband and I very much value personal growth and personal development. It is a necessity, and it's a huge value in our life. And through so many of these programs, there's a lot of underlying message that is the same, right? And I think sometimes that gets missed when there's a financial disconnect for people, right? Some of these things can cost a lot of money, or it's time away. And so whatever it is, and I think once that connection was made, it's like, how can you create this in a way that people can access it in their own space, at their own pace, in an affordable way, to be able to understand the impact of it, take it into their life, apply it, and then share it with other people. And that's really what the experience has been. So for me, when I started, there wasn't really a path that I took. It was more, okay, I'm going to sit, kind of focus on what feels intuitively right, to focus on my gratitude practice and how to actually be present. And I looked up after that amount of time and realized, okay, there was actually a step-by-step process that I took. So how can I take this step-by-step process and put it in a way that people can access it and see if it applies similar in their life? So we created the experience, which is a 28-day gratitude initiative, which we have on the Motion of Gratitude app. And then we've created journals and bracelets to kind of create this whole experience that somebody can kind of go through for those 28 days and truly feel the impact of what intentional gratitude can do. And then, in the last year, so my husband has pivoted from his financial planning business because gratitude and kind of being on this journey has impacted his life so much to really make a shift in what's important to him. So we've decided to go at this as a family. And through that, he's been having some great conversations and really starting to bring that gratitude initiative more into the business and more into the educational space. A lot of the conversations that are being had in the professional spaces looking for tools outside of physical health. It's like, how can we support our employees? How can we support our community in ways where they can grow, they can develop more life skills without adding more to their to-do list, So it's just been very cool to see how some businesses are really embracing it, and they're kind of ready for something that has a little different thought process than you usually get in some of those spaces. And for me, my heart is with the caregivers. As a mom who, our schedules aren't always ours, right? So you learn how powerful it is to be able to develop that time for yourself. And I want to be able to support caregivers who are looking for that in their own life. And to me, educators are caregivers because they're spending so much time with our kids and helping us really in this space. So it's how can we support them and really help their mindsets to be able to breathe into our kids and the next generation, because they have such an important role.
Absolutely. It's so important to support them in their journey. And it's amazing the work that you're doing. And you've had a tremendous amount of success in your business, growing it, but it is challenging.
Yes.
It's an up and down type of experience. Can you share more about, tactically speaking, what it's been like to bring your business to life and what you feel has been the best allocation of your time and resources to aid that success?
Yes. So it's funny, when I first started, I was like, oh, this is a fun idea, right? And I'm just going to see where it goes. So, but I'm also the person that has to go all in, right?
Always.
So it's like, I'm like, you sure people can do this? And I'm like, we're going to shoot pilots and then we're going to do all these things. And it was awesome because for me, it created this space to kind of say, okay, is this working? Is this helping people in different phases of life? And so 6 years ago, it was really kind of like, this is something I'm going to do for fun in kind of the little tidbits of time that I had in motherhood. I was a full-time stay-at-home mom. This was before our third. So it was a time where I knew I couldn't fully devote to building out a business, but I knew it was something that I couldn't stop either. So it was like, okay, there's this internal nudge to explore it, but I know I'm going to have to kind of allow things to unfold as they unfold. So what was kind of funny to me is I got to a point where I had built out the structure of it. We started down making sure all of our legal, like building out the LLC and, really getting it to the point where like, this is a viable business. And then I think the day I signed the LLC documents, I found that I was pregnant with my third. So it's like, okay, so it's been so many pivots. Yet I think what has truly kept me going and gotten us to a point now where we see how, now that my husband's on board, we have a different level of foundation and momentum that we haven't been able to have really in the last couple of years. But I feel like what stuck out is every time I was like, this is a silly idea, I would meet somebody like you who says, having that conversation with you changed the way that I show up, and having going through the experience made me realize I was missing these things. Or I'd get a voice note, someone would be crying because they're like, I took my gratitude today and it connected me to something that I'd forgotten about. And so it was just every time I felt like, maybe this is silly and we should stop investing in it. It's like, no, that's why you're doing it. Keep going. And yeah, it's really that deeper knowing that this is the journey that I want to be on and I want to bring my family on, and we're living it every day has just fueled the passion to kind of keep going and live life as there's more to life than going through the motions.
Discover the magic of Ethereal Farms, nestled in the heart of the rolling hills and draping forests of Chester County, Pennsylvania's wine country. Our luxury accommodations and tranquil landscapes provide the perfect escape from the hustle and bustle of everyday life. Enjoy serene walks among meadows, cozy nights by the fire making s'mores, and unforgettable moments with our friendly farm animals. Plus, it's just next door to our sister farm, Wayvine Winery and Vineyard, where you can enjoy live music, food trucks, and estate-made wines, farm-to-table cocktails, and a curated selection of craft beers. You'll also have access to more than 1,000 acres of hiking. At Ethereal Farms, we believe in the power of nature to inspire and rejuvenate. Plan your getaway today and experience the serenity and charm that only Ethereal Farms can offer. On that same note, you truly have stayed to your own beat of your own drum.
Yes.
and created your own course in life. And I would love for you to share how that's been, both in your RV expeditions, to living abroad, to picking up and relocating, and really following your intuition and what that process has been like.
Yes.
And I want to dive deeper. I have 10 billion questions on this.
Yes. So I will say I was not somebody who always followed my intuition. Didn't even really know that I had one a lot. I was very coachable growing up, which was a gift. And it also, I took a lot of external guidance on how I should do things, right? If somebody said you should go for this job, it was like, cool, if they think I'd be good at it, I'm going. And then I'd get on that path and be like, what am I doing here? This is where I want to be. And it really wasn't until I got intentional with my gratitude practice and actually learned to be present in my body and in my life that I was like, wow, I know what I want. I know where I want to go. So it was through that process where I realized that there were things that were really important to me, and there were things that I wanted to instill in my children to encourage them to follow that path for themselves. And it really did start 6 years ago, kind of seeing our oldest and with the, kind of going through school and realizing at that phase when they were so little, there was a way we could do it differently. And I think COVID in all of its, ups and downs of the experience that it created, it opened a huge door for us as a family. And my husband, who had been in the financial services business for 18 years, he worked a lot of hours and he was always out of the house. And this was the first time we were all together all the time, all five of us. And so, we're sitting in the house and we realized, like, if we're going to be together for a while, let's do something. Like, let's go out and let's explore. And, an RV seemed like a good fix. Wherever we went, we were social distancing, we were out in nature when nobody was there. So it gave us an opportunity to see the country. Like when we went to Mount Rushmore, there was 4 other people there.
Wow.
So like the national parks were so quiet, and we were like, this is great. And just to be in that space and really see my kids be kids and see them kind of figure out who they are a little bit. It's definitely been a wild ride. It's been so much learning and so much growth. And yeah, because we spent 4 years kind of off and on RVing. In that process, we did relocate to Utah. So we had lived out in Utah for 2 years. And then last winter, we spent 5 months down in Costa Rica.
I love this. I love this. We took a little hiatus to Costa Rica.
We did.
This is phenomenal.
We did.
Tactically, how do you do that?
So I am blessed to have a partner who's all in with me. Like we've decided, like we're going all in on life, and to just decide that there's so much communication that has to be had. So number one, communication is so extremely important. And to just trust that although it doesn't make sense to other people, there's a reason you feel it. And there's a reason it's part of your story. And what I have found that like in that moment, if I am making that decision and it feels aligned, then we go, and it's like, obviously both of us feel aligned, but it just felt like for this winter period, for us, like we found a great little wild school for our kids. They got to surf, they got to do yoga, they got to be out in nature. And for us, we got to feel like a part of a beautiful village down in Costa Rica. We get to find people who are on this beautiful journey of personal growth and valuing their health, valuing, focusing their time and energy on, really taking care of themselves. And to experience that, I think has been such a gift. And to live in a different culture has been such a gift too, because you see there's more than one way to live life. Growing up in one place, I thought that there was one way to find success and one way to school and one way to do these things. And I think the travel has allowed me to see there are people thriving in all different parts of the world doing it differently. So if something doesn't feel aligned, maybe you just have to go to the town over and it'll feel aligned. But I think that's what's been the most eye-opening. It's like, wow, there's other ways in which to do things.
And there's so much in taking an entire family abroad for 5 months or taking them on an RV trip and homeschooling or finding another school and everything. And so in that process of organization, not only are you tuning into what feels aligned, but what sort of steps and decisions are you making for your family to make that feasible? Because I think a lot of people would say, but how can I uproot my family? I feel like I'm so tied to a certain location, whether they have a family or a fur family or whatever the case may be.
I think one of the most eye-opening things that somebody said to me a couple years ago that really stuck was, the question was, why have you convinced yourself that what you want to do and what feels aligned for you isn't also in the best interest of your children? So I can say that in a different way if that doesn't make sense. But like, there's so many times when I connect with people and they're like, well, my kids are in sports and they have their friends. So there's this thought process that I have to sacrifice what's on my heart because of where the kids are. And that's how I felt too. It's like, if I take them out of school, then, they're never going to be able to make friends, or they're never going to be able to function in society, right? Like we say all the things in our minds, like they're not going to be able to do anything. But what I have found is that when things that are aligned for my husband and I, when we make that choice, it is aligned for our kids because there's cohesion, right? Because I am at peace and my husband is at peace. There's peace in the whole family. There's calmness. There's an understanding of like, okay, we're doing this together. So there's a safety in that for our kids. It's like, yes, they might be moving around, but we're all together. So that then becomes the safety. That becomes the structure. And it took a little while to get there because I'm like, oh my God, we're going from one place to the other. But then you did start to see like you can create that safety and that structure in motion. And that's what was very cool, because I think or sometimes we can convince ourselves that safety and structure comes with doing the same thing over and over again. And I think that's what was very eye-opening And quite frankly, with my kids, once you see them step out into the world, you see how much they thrive just by being. Like watching my kids communicate with adults, because that's what they've done. Them going to the little RV store and getting firewood or whatever by themselves. Like as a 6-year-old, like these are things that I think are so impactful. And like you talked about in the podcast that we did earlier today, like being able to have these experiences as children, to me in this chapter, I think in the world that they're growing up in, the more human that they could be, the more beneficial it will be,
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I would say those really are the things that I have learned. And I have just learned to trust myself, like it comes down to trusting that you do know what's in the best interest of your kids, and allowing that to be the louder voice than everybody else's perspective on how it should be done.
That's so impactful, so important. And I love that you shared that. And you mentioned our podcast swap. So if you didn't know, Shannon, the Motion of Gratitude podcast, it's phenomenal. I love it. I love tuning in. So you can listen to that wherever you stream podcasts. And in that process of ebbing and flowing and following and creating structure and maintaining flexibility, there can be challenges of maintaining flexibility in the face of so many changing things, particularly changing routines or changing locations. How do you maintain your personal structure while maintaining flexibility and adaptability?
Yes. So my morning routine is non-negotiable. And I think, that's the funny thing. Even before 6 years ago, I was somebody that I got up when the kids got up, because I was like, oh, I need as much sleep as possible. Right. And it wasn't until I made that shift to say, it's really important for me to set the tone of the day. Because if I wake up to a child who's already frustrated, then that just completely deregulates my nervous system. And that's how the rest of our day goes. So what I have found is if I can stay true to that rhythm, and I can kind of get a hold or an understanding of, okay, this is the direction that we plan the day to go, then it allows me to show up differently, and it allows me to then be really flexible during the day. I think motherhood has definitely taught me to be flexible. And yeah, I think that another thing that, just from like the kids' perspective, because transitions are hard for kids. Even if they're little transitions, and my kids transition a lot. And so what we have found that's actually been really, really helpful is I have a 3-day rule with the kids. So after any transition, I have no expectations of them emotionally for 3 days.
I think that's so smart.
Yeah, because I've literally, I finally started to catch on, because I'd be like, come on, we're like, we're somewhere else. We got it. It's like, it takes 3 days for them to kind of slow down, get a hold on where we are, to regulate, to calm, to reset. So it's like, okay, rather than then having expectations of them to just pick up where they left off, because that's hard for me as an adult, let me just take the pressure off. And it's literally hysterical. By the 3rd day, they're all like, hi, Mom, how are you? Like everybody settled back into their calm rhythm. So it's worked so well for us to just like have that expectation. For 3 days, they're going to be off. They're going to be tired. They're going to be cranky. And just to not feel like I have to do anything about it has been game-changing.
That's amazing. Discover Flourish Co-working Space, where your best ideas come to life in a lush, sustainable, and inspiring environment. Nestled in the heart of Westchester, Pennsylvania, Flourish is more than a workspace. It's a community that nurtures your growth. Whether you're an entrepreneur, creative, or professional, you'll find the perfect setting to thrive or host events. Come as you are, and let's grow together. Book your tour today and start flourishing. I absolutely love that. And you have been, to me, the most influential person in essentially vocalizing all of my beliefs on raising children and their educational aspects. I'd love for you to share a little bit more of your perspective on overall raising children to be good humans and how you approach their education.
Yeah. So for me, I always thought that I was going to raise my kids. I was going to send them to a traditional school. I was like, this is great. By the time they're 6, I'll be back on my own schedule and we'll be moving in the other direction. And it wasn't until I became a mom and I realized, one, how individual and unique just my 3 kids are. So imagine how individual and unique every child is, that I realized that I don't believe that there's a one size fits all for everybody. And so I think it was through that process of just allowing to explore different kinds of education that was really helpful for me. So I like to consider myself a rabbit holer. Like when I get an idea, I'm like, I have to explore it. I have to at least explore it to know whether it's right for us or it's not. So our oldest, she was in a traditional preschool, and there was nothing wrong with it. It was a great experience. And I also felt like there was a piece of her that, even in the short amount of time that she was there, that there was a little bit of her that was already, that light wasn't fully there. So I had found out that there was like a little nature school near us. I was like, oh, I'll send her here for a year. She's young. We can kind of try things out. And I tried that with her, and it allowed me to like fully immerse her in that, to see if that was a fit for her. And there was beautiful things to that, and there were things that didn't align there either. So it's truly been by, one, communicating with my kids to make sure that they're okay and they're on board, and to see, what they want to learn and how they want to learn, knowing that I'm also the parent and we have to move them in a direction to be able to be in the world. But I've just seen, when they are allowed to be themselves and they're allowed to kind of get lost in whatever it is that they're doing, they learn so much more because they're actually taking it in and they're experiencing it. They're not just reading about it. So I feel like I could have so many different conversations around it. And I think our education journey will continue to ebb and flow for us. But I think what I have found is, I think sometimes we forget as parents, our kids, they know what they need, and I think by allowing them to live and allowing them to experience different ways to learn, it's really powerful for them. And then they almost want to take ownership of that. They want to take ownership of their learning. And when things are important to them, then they have a different motivation, I guess you could say, to actually move forward in that. So we've tried a little bit of everything. We've done homeschooling, we've done world schooling, wild schooling, regular schooling. And I look at my kids and they're doing great, and I think that, if traditional schooling doesn't necessarily feel aligned, there are some beautiful, incredible resources. The people that I have met, the programs I've found, the curriculums, there's just so much beautiful stuff out there to support you wherever you are on your journey. So that's another thing deep in my heart that I love talking about.
It's really important to me because while I don't have a family yet, I love hearing your perspective and I love hearing what you're doing. And if you would like to follow Shannon on social media, we'll tag all of her information below in the show notes, because I love just seeing your adventures in real life and how you take your kids on those adventures. That shaped who I am. So it's something that I'm very passionate about. I was doing tax returns with my mom. She's an accountant. Before I could do much math, in second and third grade, I was doing tax returns and learning how to add things and subtract things. And I was going to real estate negotiations with my dad, and it advanced my education so tremendously. It's nearly unquantifiable. But for a minor example, I was then in 4th and 5th grade in multi-age and was taking the educational programs of an 8th grader.
Yes.
In 4th grade, which is wild. Yes. And then I triple majored in 3 years at undergraduate, which is unprecedented. Yes. Because I had such an incredible understanding of business that by the time that I was learning fundamentally in business school, different applications, it was cross-pollinating ideas in this wild way because I had so much background information that I wasn't trying to catch up and trying to learn. I already felt comfortable, and instead I was cross-pollinating ideas and growing.
Yes.
So I'm very passionate about everything that you do. I love seeing your journey. It's absolutely incredible. I really encourage everyone to check out the Motion of Gratitude podcast, Shannon, her husband, Nat. And I wanted to leave us with a just a couple final questions.
Yes.
So if you could share one or a few resources or books that were really transformative for you, what would they be?
That's a great question. I would say the one book that resonated so deeply with me six years ago, and I keep it by my nightstand and refer back to it every once in a while. But it's a book called The Untethered Soul by Michael Singer. Yes.
I haven't finished it, but I absolutely love it.
Yes, it was one of those books, and I think it's one of those books you have to read at the right time. And when you read it at the right time, it resonates. Because I feel like I hear mixed reviews. People are like, I either love it and I take it all in, or people are like, no, I'm not really resonating. But for me, it was the perfect time to read it, and it helped me to understand really how to connect with the present moment. And that's what I was missing in my life. I was either so focused on the future, kind of stuck in the past. And that book really taught me that there is a present moment. And when you find it, that's when you live from that place of fulfillment, from feeling untethered. You're not focused on the outcomes of things. You're focused on the present. So that book is definitely the first one I think of every single time when I think of books. Another one that I love that I read a couple years ago, but I always stick to is like You Are a Badass. That's a great book too.
It is.
Yeah, but I feel like Untethered Soul, if I had to give one, that is like hands down the book that shifted, just like all the aha moments as I was reading it.
Well, I haven't finished because it gave me so much to think about.
Exactly.
Every chapter, I was mind blown.
Me too.
I was like, I need to sit on this. It's the fact that you are not your name, you are not your role, you are not this identity, you are the soul within that. That has transformed so much for me.
Yes.
You are not your thoughts.
Yes.
Your thoughts are just chemical byproducts of your environment and your ideas, and it was transformational for me. So that's the reason why I haven't finished.
Yes, I
because
agree.
I have so much to unpack.
Yes. I thought that first chapter was like, oh,
Perspective.
yes. So yes, that resonates very deeply.
Amazing. And then if you could share one thing, just maybe something inspirational or one great takeaway that people can take with them to enjoy the next season of life or to transform the next season of life, what would their takeaway from you be?
Yeah, I think what comes up for me is I think there's so much beauty, and it ties into them both. But the present moment is a gift. And I didn't necessarily realize how it was there, because as somebody who spends so much time focused on where I want to be and how I want to grow. But it was truly when I learned to slow down, find the present moment. That's when I actually was able to connect with who I am and what I want. And that's what drove all of the decisions I've made the last 6 years. And I think if we can quiet the noise, learn to actually be in the present moment, that's where we can get clear on where we want to go. And, I think sometimes it feels too small for people, but that was the seed that really started everything for me. And my hope is to be able to help people see how powerful it is. So if you find yourself kind of in that place where life just feels busy and you feel like you're just doing everything just because, it's like, find a way to slow down, find a way to really connect with what's happening right now in the moment and see where that takes you, because it's really powerful.
Amazing. Thank you so much for joining me. I appreciate it. You're an incredible human, and I'm so grateful for you. I'll leave all of her information in the show notes. Please support her, shout her name from the rooftops. If you liked this episode, please be sure to subscribe and leave a 5-star review. And if you want to share it on social media, please tag us. We would absolutely love that. That would be one of the best things that you can do to support the podcast. So thank you so much. Thank you for joining us on this episode of the We Grow Together podcast. I hope today's conversation inspired you, provided valuable insights, and brought you closer to your more authentic self. If you enjoyed the episode, please be sure to give a 5-star review and subscribe on your favorite podcast platform so you never miss an episode. Also, be sure to screenshot and share on social media whenever you can. Sharing your support of the podcast really helps us to grow and continue making episodes just like this. You can see all of the links in the show notes for more access to guides, all of our social media information, resources, how to connect with us. And I hope that you join us in the next episode where we'll be sharing more innovative ideas, stories, all with our philosophy that we grow together. I'll see you in the next episode.